Hey guys, what's going on? Zura again over here, and this is part 2 of fundamental principles of chess openings, where I play rapid games against lower rated players to illustrate three pillar points. Number one, fight for the center. Number two, develop your pieces towards the center. Number three, secure your king, which most of the time means to castle. All right. In the previous video, I played some d4, d5, queen's pawn. Now I will play some e4, e5, king's pawn. I am targeting the rating range under 1000. So let's see. Right in that range, 1200. Opponent starts with e4. Great. Okay, let's answer it with e5. We balance the center here. Opponent covers the d5 square, we cover the d4. Knight f3, developing the knight and attacking our pawn, the central pawn. We will also develop our knight and defend the central pawn. Knight c3, this is called 4 knights. Activating the knight, I think actually bringing the bishop makes more sense because we want to castle as fast as possible, as I said earlier on. However, obviously, this 4 knights, knight c3, and d4 is specifically called 4 knights scotch. Now white is trying to take over the center here, but obviously we will not allow that immediately. They may have the central e4 pawn and slight advantage in the center. However, we'll try to play bishop b4 here. Again, develop our pieces, and what bishop was doing is pinning that knight, and we want to take the pawn on e4. All right, opponent takes our knight on c6. Slightly inferior pawn structure here. We have a double pawns. However, this pawn on c6 will help our d pawn to take over the center shortly. All right. As I said, the key principle number 3 was secure our king with the short castle. Right now, we have secured our king, and we are ready to hit in the center. d5. Okay, opponent, I think, played an extra move. Bishop d2 here might not be necessary because we have already managed to secure our king castle. So this allows us the possibility to check early on and ask opponent the question: how are they gonna either move the check or block it, basically, right? Okay, we can take on d5 with the pawn, threatening d4. However, there is a little trick there. If we take with the pawn, opponent can castle, and if we go d4 there, which you may think wins the piece there with the fork, opponent may have a little trick there, taking on d4 with the bishop. And if we take with the queen, there is a famous trick, very standard trick here. Bishop will take on h7, and then our queen on d4 will be hanging. Let's actually play c takes d5. We do not have d4 on the next move. However, we still have very solid center, and maybe c5, d4 can also be in making. Okay, we cannot go d4 again, as I said, because of bishop takes d4, and then there, if we take with the queen, our queen on d4 will be unprotected. So what do? We can try going something like knight g4, making this bishop uncomfortable. However, I like the move bishop back to d6. What this move does is it renews the threat of knight g4 and takes control of a very important diagonal, this b8 h2 diagonal. It is immediately targeting the white king here. So Opponent goes rook e1. I think we can now play knight g4. That will be attacking the h2 pawn and the e3 bishop. That does give up. Well, it actually doesn't give up the d5. Or does it give up the d5 pawn? We can go knight g5, knight takes d5, bishop takes h2, king maybe f1, but we still cannot take on d5 because there is this bishop h7 trick again, discovering the queen. Well, okay, we may just allow knight d5 here, and let's go knight g4. All our pieces are well, more or less developed. Our bishop on c8 is not yet developed, and rook on a8. However, we have, I think, enough pieces developed to start some active operations on the king side. I think knight d5 is probably the most critical here. However, I can tell that it is never comfortable for this rating range to give opponent counterplay, and it makes a lot of sense. Allowing this bishop h2 check here did look pretty scary. So white decided to give us the pair of bishop. Unfortunately for our opponent, this does not only give up the pair of bishops, but it also weakens this pawn on e3 a lot. Our pawn on d5 right now is also under attack, so let's protect it, secure it well and nice. And now we have two bishops advantage. Queen f3 is actually a good move because we had the threat of queen b6 attacking the b2 and e3 pawns both. Maybe we can still do queen to b6 here, making this guy uncomfortable. All right, let's still do that. Since if there is rook f1, we can just bring out our bishop to defend everything else there. So pinning this pawn also stops white from playing e4. Also now b2 pawn is uncomfortable to defend. If white goes b3 here, we may have some bishop e5 ideas. Now use this dark square, unopposed dark square bishop. Okay, opponent attacks our f7 pawn with the threat of a checkmate on the next move. So obviously we do not want any of that. We will secure the f7 pawn and renew the threat on b2 pawn. Knight a4, that is actually a good move, defending with the attack. Okay, let's go to b4, renew again the threat on that. Well, actually we didn't have threat on that knight, we only had that on that pawn, but now we have on the knight and on the pawn. Most likely b3 is going to be played, and that is what happens. Now let's bring in the last undeveloped piece into the game, which is our rook. All our pieces are into the game right now. Our pawn structure is better because this pawn on e3 is quite weak. Probably actually white wants to get rid of that somehow, maybe e4 right now. But we'll probably try to build the battery, especially since our dark square bishop is unopposed. I think we can start thinking of this diagonal. Oh wow, opponent almost listened to us. But I still want to get on this diagonal. Let's try bringing the queen to e5 so we can target the h2 square. I actually do not see how can white comfortably defend against this. I will now go to e5 and threaten to checkmate the opponent on h2. King g1 seems to be the only move. However, it is not easy to find moves like this because white had just moved the king from g1. So going back is not going to be easy. It's also like confessing your mistake, basically. Okay, he goes for king g1. What should we do right here? There are a couple of ideas that I have. We can start with queen h2. We can also start with just simply taking on e4. Okay, let's go bishop to, queen to h2. Bring the king out. Now let's take on e4. The end should be near here. We must be winning some material in the next couple of moves, but opponent is very tenacious with bishop takes e4. All right, how do we wrap this up here? I'm trying to get my bishop on the dark square somehow, but this, so I can check the king, but this knight covers everything else, so I don't think we can do that. Maybe we can try to get rid of this bishop. Is that a good idea? Alright, let's try to get rid of the defender. I would say defender. That bishop maybe was not quite a defender of the king, but it was nearby the king. So getting rid of potential defenders of the king can not be a bad thing for us. Now my threat actually is to win the queen here, probably, with bishop g3. You can pause the video to see how that works out. If queen takes g3, we'll need to distract the king. Alright, that was bishop g3, queen takes g3, and the rook goes to e2. That was the threat here. And if king took on e2, then we would take the queen on g3. If king f3, we had rook e3 check to win the queen again on g3. Well, our opponent made it easy for us. Now this knight on a4 does not cover the c5 square anymore, so I think bishop c5 check actually will decide the game, because king has no squares. White will have to give up the queen. All right, I think this would be a perfect match. Let's try with e4, knight f3. We are developing our knight towards the center, and as I want to recommend this bishop c4 move, developing the bishop on the diagonal of f7 pawn. All right, with knight goes to f6. This is called two knights opening, attacking our pawn on e4. How do we do this? Let's go d3. The classical Italian, we simply protect the pawn on e4 and are getting ready to go short castle. Opponent goes very aggressive, d5. So far we haven't done anything wrong. d5 is actually a line. But since we are level in development right now, I think we can simply secure our king, go castle, and get ready for the aggressive shenanigans on the open e file. What I meant by aggressive shenanigans is knight takes e5. We have already finished the development here almost. Only queenside development has left. So opponent had no business with f5. The black's position is simply not ready to go offensive here. For that reason, now knight e5 is actually a trick. We can start with knight e5 and then skewer this knight on the e5. I do not see how that knight can be protected. Well, queen d6 is a one move, but now we can go d4, and that knight on e5 will be in trouble. With that knight, not only that knight, I think after that knight is gone, the king loses the castling. There will be a lot of problems now related to those two central knights. All of this started with f5. This e5 square needed to be strengthened by other means. I'm actually not sure exactly how that knight, that e5 pawn, maybe f6 early on. Okay, let's take on e5 with the rook, bring rook into the attack. What? Opponent takes our rook. Well, that was not expected. We simply, I think, broke our opponent's mental resistance here. b5. Let's now convert simply by simplifying the position here. Well, okay. Opponent is very cooperative with their material here, with his or her material. All right, so we developed our minor pieces, and opponent decided to give up because there is a checkmate in one move from d5. All right, so we keep it simple. We fight for the center. We develop our pieces towards the center. We secure our king with the castling. As you can see, almost in all our example games so far, after completing those three checkpoints, opponent just self-destructs.